smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
In 1874, in the western part of Kansas, there was a grasshopper invasion. And on that occasion, the governor called a special session of the legislature, met and considered all the problems, enacted the proper legislation for relief and aid and so on. If that same situation should occur today, according to a speech given by the Kansas governor many years ago, we all know what would happen. It would take practically a photo finish to determine, he says, which would land first, the grasshoppers or a horde of federal agents. And that's an accounting of the federalization of the once agricultural economy, the once non-administrative, personalistic type economy of that state. And it's found in my book for the week. And the book for the week is The People's Pottage by Garrett Garrett. I'm making an effort every week to give you, my listener, references and recommendations of the best short volumes. I know I'll have to get into some long ones at some point. The best short volumes for your home and your own library. And this copy of a book that came out in 1958, I've got the Western Islands edition. The Caxton edition is 1983, printed, and there's an online version at Mises.org, a 1958 reprint. It's only 140 pages long, and it's The People's Pottage by Garrett Garrett. It is a lyrical treatment of you might say the decline of the American system into empire, into the administrative warfare and regulatory behemoth that it has become. And I recommend this book not just because Garrett Garrett was there on scene reporting from Washington and from the councils of Congress and the president during these events. He writes about them in a way that's poetic and lyrical. He was from 1922 to 1942 the writer and chief analyst at the Saturday Evening Post, and published 13 books. And as I say, People's Pottage, which is my book of the week, is available online. You can download the 58 edition at Mises.org, Mises.org. And it's a book comprising 3 essays, and it has a great sentence in it. And let me just read it to you. I've read it once before, and it is the conclusion of the essay, "The Revolution Was." That's the lead essay in this 3-part book. "So it was," he says, "that a revolution took place from within the form. Like the hagfish, the New Deal entered the old form and devoured its meaning from within. The revolutionaries were inside, the defenders were outside. A government that had been supported by the people and so controlled by the people became one that supported the people and so controlled them. Much of it is irreversible." That is true because habits of dependence are much easier to form than to break. Once the government, on ground of public policy, has assumed the responsibility to provide people with buying power when they are in want of it, or when they are unable to provide themselves with enough of it, according to a minimum proclaimed by government, it will never be the same again. This is David Tulis, and we're talking today about alternatives to this system, which has been under construction since, well, you might say since Reconstruction in 1865, and is at a point today, a breaking point, where there are no restraints anymore of the increasing friction-creating, cost-creating, improvident, and unworkable lack of discipline, which is the national economy and national government. Donald Trump says he's going to cut back on administration and cut back on federal claims against the people in the states, and he's right in many, many ways, but I wonder if he will get far enough. I think Garrett Garrett, the author of our book of the week this week, The People's Pottage, I think he would look on our prospects as doleful, but they're not doleful for you and for me here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. We're talking with Dustin Sprick, who is a homeschool dad. Now, Dustin, there's where are you going to be this afternoon? What's happening at Camp Jordan in East Ridge?
There's a CSDF fair. Basically, it's a curriculum fair, so it's for homeschoolers. They have curriculums there that you can get or ask questions about. So if you don't know what you're interested in homeschooling, you're not sure if you're going to do it or any kinds of questions like that, this homeschool curriculum fair is going to be a place that you can talk to other people face to face and ask them the positives and negatives and which curriculums and there's just tons of information there.
So there are all kinds of things, books, the best books, the best kind of history books you can read for men, of course, and moms, as well as for children. Software. There are all kinds of presentations and speeches by experts, and these exhibitors are the best in their field. CS Thea, which is the sponsor, gets the very best in the educational market here for 2 days in Chattanooga. Of course, it's East Ridge at Camp Jordan. It's details are at csthea.org. That's csthea.org. Dustin Sprick, you're a dad with 6 acres of land. You live in Appleton with your wife Allison and your 4 children. They are ages 10, 9, 6, and 4. The only girl is the 9-year-old. What are the benefits that you see in living sort of apart from other people with a sort of home-centered life for your children? What benefits are they getting being homeschooled, Dustin?
So one of the big benefits, I believe, is that we as parents and grandparents that are around our kids the most now, and not somebody else that I don't know, are able to set our expectations and our desires for our kids, and to either fail or succeed. And it's going to be on us, and I don't have to guess if someone else is doing it. One of the things that happened to make kind of this move too was You
mean the move to a rural place from a neighborhood in the city?
and also move from school to homeschool, and one of them was a big kind of positive, I guess, to move that direction, because homeschooling I haven't seen negatives to quite yet. There's no negative socialization. They get so much. We go to church events, and we go and hang out with other homeschool families for like swimming and sports and all kinds of things on weekly and hours at a time. So, and it's just for the purpose of socialization and exercise, and for the moms too, to get out and be around other moms. So it's a big deal. That's a hard thing for them. So
you're a programmer in the orthodontic management field and work from home, so you get probably less socialization than your children.
Oh, right? Yeah, a ton. Like, I'm excited when I get to go out and be around other dads and be around other people's kids and all that kinds of stuff. Because for me, that's just I don't get any of that other than I'm just around my family and then just in my office working.
Well, so, I have 4 children, and one age 14 is still at home, Dustin. And I declare when all my children were at home, there was so much socializing going on. I was sick of it. I was sick of socialization. I was sick of them going out. Why don't we just stay home and read and tend to flowers and get the grass mowed, things like that?
Because that would be easy, David. So yeah, no. So there's much more work in a sense, there's a lot more work to be done, but it's all in a very constructive and positive way. You really get to choose who your kids spend time with. And that gives them a much, much more positive socializational structure.
Dustin, the national system of government and the huge payroll of federal dependents is breaking up. We're looking at states such as Illinois not being able to pay its bills. Its retirees are maybe left hanging, and there's a threat around the country of government-funded retirement systems collapsing for lack of payment, for lack of funds. So there's going to be distress in the next 20 years in local economy here as these dependency-creating structures that are government-oriented will fail. How can my listener and his family take advantage of the opportunities that these disasters in the national headlines, these disasters will bring here? What's your take, and how can we take advantage of bad times ahead?
I would say that it's inevitable. There's a rise in general. There's a rise and fall of all kinds of cycles, right? There's a rise and fall of nations. There's an entire series of books entitled that, and so it's just a matter of time when that occurs, and then how much does it occur? So the more you can move away from civics, in a sense, civic centers, living outside of it, is going to be far more likely you're going to survive well. And it's not just about doing well, but actually, I guess, growing and not just subsisting. I guess that's maybe the difference between the two. And I think that by moving away from those civic centers, finding yourself even an acre or half an acre, you can do a lot with that. You can look at the groups like permaculture groups. They have all kinds of information on how to almost live off of a half an acre of land, and you don't even need to go to the stores, and you can get all your produce from that. So just really getting outside of the structured. So like if you were living in a home association, those things are huge now. Just stay away from those.
Why? Because they forbid sheds in the back of your yard where you keep your hoe?
Yeah, you can't do anything without your neighbors saying, well, you can't do that. And then they go and they get a group, and then everybody's like, well, that doesn't look nice, and we don't like that. And you're like, well, but I just made a vegetable garden, and I like my vegetables. And they're like, no, you can't do that. It's too big. That kind of thing. You're just like, what? It's my yard. I paid for it. So,
well, if there is financial calamity ahead out of Washington and New York, and people are going to be suddenly needy, their cash flow, their direct deposits may stop or shrivel, or we may have a rapid inflation. People will be hurting. Wouldn't it be better to be near people, Dustin, to be able to render aid and help and even godly encouragement to people who are in distress?
Yeah, we have a kind of an example of that already. One of my neighbors passed away recently, and so left a widow. And she has been needing help around the yard and things like that because she works and all that kinds of stuff, and she's doesn't do really much yard work at this point. And so like mowing her grass, getting her garbage can, those kinds of things. And my kids like doing that kinds of stuff too. So it's a good way to get them thinking about other people and not just about how can I be more lazy. That's a tough one.
Well, I guess the question, to get back to my question, Dustin Sprick, the life in the city has perils, as you say. You may have neighbors whose 13-year-old sons are consumers of porn, and you don't want your 10-year-old boy to be anywhere near such a child whom you suspect may have an obsessive secret compulsion in that direction. On the other hand, being in a city allows you to be serviceable and charitable to people whom you might not ever meet if you're in a remote rural area, as you are in Appleton.
I think that we generally have limited time, so having a remote area isn't wage you from helping other people. You're still around other people. In fact, you have a smaller group that you have to really take care of, and so
you're less choosy in whom you help, right?
Yeah, that's. I mean, like you're like, well, I got 4 neighbors, and so I'm going to help my 4 neighbors, and I can do that because I have time to do that. If I had 100 neighbors, there's no way I could help them. Like I could help maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 max. And so, everybody has a lot of things on their plate to do, and really just having that small group is a good anyway. It moves you in the right direction. I would also say that living in away from the masses provides you with, like you were saying, the ability to selectively pick and make sure that bad things aren't going on because you're more aware of where your kids are and what they're doing.
Well, this is David Tulis. We're encouraging you to attend today the expo, the Homeschool Expo in Camp Jordan at East Ridge. It's going on till 6 this afternoon. $8 will get you in for both days. You and your whole family can go. So you may be a public school man, my listener, the man who matters. Thank you for joining us. Nonetheless, there are many things there. And I think if you look yourself as head of the household, look at yourself at the many, many offerings of this very rich market. Homeschooling has enriched the educational services market, the educational products market, the publishing fields, all enriched by serving this increasingly large and important sector of the educational economy. So Dustin will be there today. I will be there all the rest of today and tomorrow. Make sure you ask for me if you, my listener, would like to join, and just tell me, hey, I'm your listener. And I have one listener, and that's you, and I'm really grateful that you're sitting in here for just a couple minutes with Dustin Sprick. And I. So, Dustin, let's ask a little bit more about the future. I project a very bleak future in the national sector, and much neediness and personal neediness and financial peril arising in households in the hinterlands, which is where we are. What can Christian people, what can homeschool-minded people do in the way of care and charity among neighbors?
So, I guess one of the things I would comment on real quick would be during the World War II era, they had things called the Victory Gardens. And what people would do is they'd create their own. The government was pushing to be self-sustaining, and that was during a time of war and a time of lacking. And so if we're moving towards that, getting it back into that concept, getting back into the victory gardens where you're raising your own tomatoes, you're making your own zucchinis. Maybe you like pumpkins, maybe you want to give pumpkins to your neighbors during the Halloween season because people like painting up pumpkins. Things like that are a real specific way that you can be involved. My wife has been create a pumpkin garden and then have everybody that we know come over and pick out a pumpkin during that time. So that could happen this next fall. We might end up doing something like that for next year. So things like that. Specifically, I would just say that in some ways we have kind of an escape area for people if they have hard times. We have enough area that we could put, camp people out or get help with and that kind of thing. So that's nice about having the amount of acres we have, but you don't really need that much. And so basically, one of the other things I really like to talk about would be the homeschooling and how it sets your culture. So you're going to be moving away from the school system, which whoever's there is going to build up your kids. And you want to be those people that build your kids up and how they're built up. You don't want to let other people do that for you. And here in the South, we have a lot better moral character, typically, from where I've moved from, which was West Coast and then Colorado. And now here, I'm not bringing those cultures with me. I want to stay. I want to be part of the Southern culture and the South and taking care of your neighbors.
Does thinking locally really matter? Is it really important to be loco-centric in your thinking, or is that just kind of a whimsical idea here at Nooga Radio?
It's tough. I would say it's tough because there's so much corporate stuff and in our stores for food and things like that are corporate. And I think, though, that service style businesses are really best done locally. So if like you have a person that works on cars and stuff like that locally, that's a great way to do it. It's just tough to get outside of like your Walmarts and your even going to the corner store for milk and things like that.
What kind of little businesses could any of your 4 children develop being homeschooled in a rural setting? What's ahead for them possibly?
Eggs, chicken eggs. So one of the things that my wife and I have talked about is raising chickens, getting eggs, and then selling range-free, fresh farm eggs and vegetables, and then maybe we'll move into cows,
maybe goat's milk,
or a pig or something like that, where we can raise 2 pigs and give one / sell one, those kinds of things. And if my kids do all the work for it, by gosh, I'm gonna give them the reward of their efforts.
Do your children get allowances? What's your thinking?
Yeah, they do. I think that it's tough not to get be incentivized by nothing, right? So something has to incentivize you. And so right now, allowances and other gifts on our part for my wife and I provide those. So like my son, he needs to get out and run and kind of do his own sport more because he's got a lot of free time. And so one of the things that he's doing is we've made a challenge for him. Like,
is that the 10-year-old or the 4-year-old?
The 10-year-old. So he's out and he's going to run a mile a day. And as he runs a mile a day, if he does 5 days, then he gets a reward. So this week it's a smoothie. He gets a smoothie. And that's, in a sense, that's an allowance, right? It's a gift. It's just a specific one. So that's kind of one of the things that he picked as one of his rewards.
Are the benefits of homeschooling good or dramatic?
They're dramatic. It is by far so positive. I can't make an argument that against it. The kids that I've seen that go through homeschooling and grow up that way are so much more confident in what they can do and in the interests that they have. And I think that's a big part is because their parents are able to see on a minutia level what their interests are and where they should go and how best to train them.
And your job as the dad before God is to resource those gifts and interests.
Yep. And so, we've given up one income in order to do that. My wife does the training, and I provide the cash flow in order to do that. And then it takes that cash flow away from the state. And we kind of, we're keeping it local in that sense.
This is David Tulis, and we do thank you for giving us just a couple minutes of your time here at Nooga Radio, AM 1240, FM 92.7. Get the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone, and when you have that app on your phone and have my station signed in, it always automatically plays the moment you tap your phone, and you can hear me. You can hear Sean Hannity every day at 3, every weekday at 3. Also, the best of over the weekends. And Colin Cowherd at noon. We've got great shows all throughout the day here, and a great audience. And I'm glad that you, my listener, are joining me today. And Dustin Sprick, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Dustin Sprick and I will both be at the Homeschool Expo today. It goes till 6. Do come and ask for me and ask for Dustin. You can see what he looks like here on YouTube and also live on Facebook. And we have great questions next. Now, next, the unlawful Airbnb ordinance in Chattanooga and better ordinances in Memphis and elsewhere. David Tulis.
News and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240.